Why is almost every writer in the world broke in 2024? And this is such a touchy topic for so many people out there because writers as a collective have more limiting beliefs than any other artistic group out there. It is actually sad. And here on Right Conscious, we believe that literary works can kick off a literary renaissance. And I would never promote or tell anyone to write hacky science fiction, fantasy, book talk works, romance, thrillers, or anything like that, because only transformative works can create an educational and spiritual awakening that can activate the world. And as writers, we have a unique opportunity that filmmakers and visual artists and people into politics or whatever else don't have, because books cut deep. But what has happened to us? Because this may be shocking to some people, but money is the primary social resource. It has no inherent value on its own. But if you are writing transformative and valuable works, then the sky is the limit with how much money you can make. And let's start with the main limiting belief out there about making money from books in 2024 in a literary way. And that is that out there in the world, there are a bunch of brain-rotting sheeple and NPCs that don't care about reading anymore and don't care about deep things. But that is 100% false, because we do live in a post-literate world where most people don't use the reading skills they acquired when they are younger. And yes, people are becoming less intelligent, happy, and healthy every single year. But for instance, there is a YouTuber out there named Windy Goon, and he made a video on Blood Meridian. And because of that video, tens of thousands, if not over 100,000 people who probably don't read very often or aren't that literary of readers picked up Blood Meridian and got through it. I've talked to a ton of them, and it was hard, but they pushed through it because they were primed to and had a burning desire to finish it. And so most likely what you are writing right now, your literary work, is not as complicated and as convoluted as Blood Meridian. When Infinite Jest came out in the 1990s, countless people who weren't strong readers, who had never picked up a postmodernist work before, finished Infinite Jest. And let me go out on a limb here and get polemic and give you guys a real hot take. I have read a ton of writing online. I have seen a ton of amateur writing, but I have never seen someone who is actually a great writer, who is willing to market themselves and put themselves out there, who hasn't attained success and generated thousands of readers across 3 or 5 years. I've never seen it. It actually doesn't exist. Because we love to hold on to the Kafka, what about Emily Dickinson, what about all the misunderstood writers? In 2024, there are countless people who will read your work. There are people who will understand you. You don't have to just impress the oligarchs of the publishing houses anymore. You can impress individual people who will understand what's going on. And if you are good enough, you will spike their interest. And so a lot of the negativity in the writing community, and here we go, is coming from crappy authors who haven't put the time in, who haven't actually had transcendent experiences and are writing anything transformative. And when they don't have success, when no one cares about their work, when they are even unwilling to even talk or promote their work, and they just post it online or send it to some random publishing house, then they get all mew and then create a bubble of negativity for everyone else. And priming is more important, I think, than any of you guys realize, because I don't know where I read this, but I've told some of you guys this before on the channel. But there was a study where people would walk up to individuals at a coffee shop and say, hey, if you listen to my story for 1 minute, I will give you $20. And so obviously they had some people say yes. And so this 1 minute story had some very happy elements and some very sad elements. And then around 20 minutes later, someone would walk up to that same person and say, hey, can you hold my coffee really fast? And then they would hand them a coffee and they would say, hey, I saw that guy talking to you earlier. He gave me $20 too. What did he tell you a story about? And people who were given a hot coffee overwhelmingly talked about the more positive elements. And people who received a cold coffee talked more about the sad elements. First impressions, priming matters a ton. And so when authors in 2024 enter the game and they are new and maybe they are developing their skills, when all they hear is that this is all bullshit and no one cares, they are going to be inherently lazy. They are going to create limiting beliefs and become resentful and mad and embody some of the mentalities I'm about to talk about right now. And so there are two core mentalities that make writers lazy. And the first one is a very anti-capitalist mindset, because there are writers out there, who believe that they are capturing a piece of the transcendent ideal. And this little fragment of their story will be corrupted if it has anything to do with money. And they don't have a care in the world about success or people's opinion or money. They're just going to leave this here and go off into the night, which is fine. But what makes me laugh about those people is that they have to fucking tell us that they are doing that. If they were actually living that out, okay, post your story, do your thing. I don't care about you. But many of us have trauma surrounding money, because when you look at a lot of movies, when you look at the media and the evil billionaires and in movies and in stories, who are the evil people? They are the ones with money. And of course, that comes from a very realistic scenario and archetype that has been played out all throughout history. But applying that archetype and applying that mindset to your transformative work that can create social value, happiness, and enlightenment out in the world is absolutely insane. You should be getting paid for your work, or your work should be leading you to some paid position where people are supporting you. And so this anti-capitalistic mindset that so many people bring into the game has ruined countless talents out in the writing world. And if you spend time on Reddit or Discord or online, which a lot of writers do, if you are a logic bro, then it is very easy to get sucked up into this mentality, because obviously capitalism sucks. Obviously communism sucks. Obviously the exploitation of workers and people in the modern day era by whatever economic system, because we haven't transcended the concept of the GDP being our God, sucks. And I love when I mention economics, people go, oh, this guy doesn't understand economics. He's a poet, they don't understand. Guys, do you want me to go on a 15-minute economic lecture right now? Would that make sense in a video? My dad was a professor of economics my entire life. He still teaches economics. Though reductive logic broing is insane. But back to the second mentality. So we have the anti-capitalist bros whose work can't be corrupted. Then we have the real problem. We have the idolizers of the golden age of literature, because yes, we would all love to be able to sit down, write our book, publish our book and send it off and make $1 million like Ernest Hemingway did and everyone else did back in the day. We would love if slush piles existed. But the reason slush piles can't exist anymore is that people don't take their work seriously. Everybody wants to be a writer now. Everybody wants to be an artist, but no one wants to put in the work, and no one wants to transform themselves first so that they can release transformative literature. I worked at a literary magazine. We would get, it was a bigger one. We would get, for an issue for like poetry submissions, we would get 500 to 600 poems. And guys, maybe 10 to 15 would be passable. The other 550 were absolute shit. But if you ask those people about being a writer, they'd be like, yeah, I'm a writer. And so that was just at a literary magazine that would pay you $50 for your poem. How many novels and things would Random House or Penguin get if they had an open slush pile still? And so all of us want that. But just like before the printing press and before paperbacks became a big thing at the start of the 20th century, not many people could be authors. There is a new situation for literary authors in 2024. And we could either complain, which is what everyone does because we are moving out of the golden age, or we could figure it out. Because the number one thing I hear from people, and I would say this is actually the number one reason why people are broke, is this line right here. And I'm taking the mic off to show you guys. This one has to be over dramatized. I don't want to promote my work. Oh my God, my work is so, I can't do, I'm an introvert. Mommy doesn't like me. Oh my God. Promote your work. Promoting your work is talking about your work in a confident way that is clear and coherent and tells people that it's transformative. No one gives a fuck about your random novel that is, some convoluted mess that maybe has this little piece, this much of transformation in it, just because that is an interest that you like from when you were a 12-year-old boy. Guess what, everyone? I love super campy and niche things that have no transformative power, but I would never use my artistic talent and time to shove it down someone's fucking throat. I respect myself more to do that. And then if I tried to do that and no one cared, and it's crazy, you guys. So many people are not using their talents, and that means, yes, that you are going to have to transform yourself. That means, yes, that you are going to have to become a different human being. That means, yes, over the next 3 to 10 years, you are going to have to get over your fake anxiety, your fake ADHD, your fake bullshit excuses for every single reason that you can't understand that when one suffers, we all suffer. And when you understand that, all your petty excuses don't matter, and all that matters is the art and the ideal fragment of an experience that you are going to put out in the world, because it actually matters and you matter. And it's so easy to talk about it once you understand that. But the only way you can get there, and this is, now we're getting into the mind-blowing stuff. Now we're getting into the really sketchy territory. You should turn this off now, because you understand that concept when you have a transcendent experience. And when you have a transcendent experience, your writing automatically has a quantum leap. All the people who I said are crappy writers who don't write anything, who I just look at, I'm like, Jesus Christ, what is happening here? Every single one of them hasn't tapped into something deeper yet. All of them haven't tapped into something outside of themselves yet. And when you do that, two different things are going to happen. You will either become a hermit, stop complaining, not worry about any of us and any of this anymore, and go off into the world, or you are going to have the confidence and the skills to overcome anything and adapt to the situation that writers need to put themselves in to be successful in 2024. And being successful as an author is bigger than making money. It's about transforming people's lives. But if someone transforms your life, of course you're going to give them money. I mean, people are cheap as hell now, and that's a whole other story. But there hasn't been one person since the start of the bartering system that if they had something that could change your life, whether it was a technology, a mindset, or whatever, that wasn't able to capitalize that at least a little bit. And if they were confident in themselves and it actually was helpful to society, most of the time it worked out well. Some of the times they got killed, but everyone also, and here's another thing, most writers are broke in 2024 because most writers think that they are the outlier. Well, I have ADHD. I can't do that. No, it's me. No, it's not you. You are not the outlier. Jesus Christ, you are not special. You are just like the rest of us. And that is step one, taking personal responsibility for where you are at and your successes or your failures. If nobody cares about your writing right now, if you think you've done everything, then it is 100% your fault. You somewhere along the way went wrong with what you were doing. I can look almost at any single writer's Substack and in 30 seconds tell you absolutely why no one cares about their writing. I don't have to go that deep. It's like that. And that may sound harsh, that may sound brutal, but there is an aura and there is something when it's there and when it's worked on and when it's cultivated that I can sense. And this isn't just in the genres that I like. I'm on Substack all the time and I see people's profiles who are doing some crazy thing I've never heard of before or don't care about. I'm like, oh, yep, they got it. But if you don't have it and you don't know that you don't have it, then you were just really blind. Then you really need to work on yourself and really work. I mean, that's a whole other podcast. That is like a personal development course and seminar type stuff. But most of the time it comes from selfishness. It comes from a reluctance to get in the Tolstoyan mindset, to get into a mindset that this is bigger than you. Because when you say, I don't want to promote, that means that you are offsetting the responsibility on agents, publishing houses, journals, the Amazon algorithm, booktubers to promote your work, citizens, social media, places where you can advertise. That's what you are doing when you say that. And writers are the biggest group of complainers and pussies that I've ever known. I had a friend in university and he wanted to be a rapper. He was like, I'm going to sit and do this. And he practiced his skills. He made it objectively pretty good. But then he was like, I don't have the money for this. I want like a Newman microphone that's like $1,500. I want to get some features from like famous rappers and those are going to cost like $10,000 each. And guess what, guys? I mean, this is going to sound bad, but he didn't sit and complain. Oh, no one cares. No one can know the SoundCloud era is over. He didn't say that. He went out and did illegal activities and in 6 months had $50,000, had studio time, had features from everybody, made his dream a reality. And he has now moved on to other things, but he can look back at his life and say that I made good rap songs. I performed at concerts and got people to come out. And he sold merch and he was just moving. He activated himself. He didn't say that this is wrong or he didn't care about the law. He didn't care about anything. He made his dream a reality. Almost every other group of artists in the world knows that. People move to Los Angeles and New York, like my boy David Sanchez. Shout out to him, the Good MD. He's over on Substack right now. He has some good writing, but he's also a very good comic. And he was telling me today, to fuel his comedy career, he's getting out of Arizona and he's moving to New York City. How many of you guys have moved somewhere for your writing career? People do it all the time in every other field. I mean, even though I trash on MFA programs all the time, how many of you guys have gotten into MFA programs? Because there is a buffer zone. If you are being serious about writing, selling books is very hard. If you want to make $100,000 a year, you're going to have to sell, if it's self-published, 20,000 books a year. And if it's traditionally published, like 40,000 books a year. And those are pretty big numbers. But there is teaching writing in college. There is fellowship. There are fellowship opportunities. There are all the different things that you can do online. You could be doing live readings. You could be helping people one-on-one. There are countless ways to make money and cruise as an author in 2024. And most people who tell me that they want to be a writer aren't even pursuing any of those. We literally do nothing. We are lazy. And I understand that there is this priming idea that most writers are introverts. And I 100% don't buy that, because 99% of the authors behind me on that bookshelf were not introverts. They had a very good social life. They had wives or multiple lives. They weren't incels. They were out in the world. They go out and have tea and drink at night with people. They have friends. Most writers out there who call themselves writers or call themselves introverts, once again, are just scared. And that's a whole other video of why they are scared and what they are scared of. But making people care, which is the job of a writer, the job of an artist, the job of someone who is trying to make money from their art, making people care. And it's a really hard thing to do. Chael Sonnen over in the UFC says that all the time, that making people care about you as a fighter is the most difficult thing in the world. And most fighters out there, there are countless fighters and countless boxers who have been absolute goats, but because they have refused to market themselves, they don't make a lot of money. They are forgotten, and eventually they kind of are out of the conversation of the GOAT. One of the reasons that John Jones is kind of in the conversation of being the GOAT is that, he cheated on his wife, he did steroids, he beat his wife, he hit a pregnant lady with a car, he hit under a UFC octagon to not get tested. I mean, all of those things add to the aura, even if they're all negative. He's still in the conversation. But someone like Demetrius Johnson, who has maybe a more formidable record than he does, no one cares about him because he never really did anything with his time in the spotlight. And it sucks. And obviously, you guys don't need to go full Conor McGregor, but it is something to think about. That making people care is an active thing, and it requires thought. And there are outliers. There are people who can just post their work, or they just come into the UFC and people just love them for whatever reason. But most likely, that is not you. And so let's talk about it. So the first excuse I always hear people say is, I'm an introvert. Who cares? Second, promoting and selling my art ruins it. We already talked about that. Marketing makes me feel icky. I'm not a salesman. Then don't sell anyone. Guys, talking about your work, talking about other people's work, being in the writing and reading community, it doesn't have to be salesy at all. Guys, right now, I could promote my Substack and my writing school and probably get someone to join just like this. Hey, you guys, if you guys want access to 50 or 60 hours of content that I've put out that you can't get here, including an unreleased interview by Cormac McCarthy and a ton of other cool stuff, and you guys want to support me, a broke teacher who is trying to make his writing dream happen, then go join me on my Substack. But if you don't have any money, I still want to help you. And I want you to go join my free writing school, which is the best free writing school and the most active free writing school on the internet. That didn't feel icky at all, you guys. That feels like a fair pitch. I'm offering some paid stuff. I'm offering some free stuff. Everybody wins. The same could be with my writing. Hey, if you guys want to go buy my book, Desert Orpheus, which isn't out yet, but is about to be out very soon, head over to Amazon. I really put a lot of time into infusing Greek mythology into desert poetry. I'm really proud of it. But if you guys don't want to, or if you guys want to see a preview of my work, you guys can go over to Substack, where I have a bunch of poems posted. And if you subscribe over there, over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, I will probably post a poetry book's worth of free content over there. And so thank you for the support. And if not, thank you for watching. That's all it is, you guys. It's not that hard. And going back to my previous point, a lot of people feel icky about their work because they don't believe in it. Guys, for $10 a month, my Substack, I feel, is a pretty damn good deal. Maybe you don't, but I feel like it's a good deal for all the book clubs, But what's funny is that back in May, I wasn't doing the book clubs yet and the office hours and a bunch of other stuff. And I was sitting there and I was like, why are people paying $5 a month? Like, is this worth it? And then I was sitting there and I was like, And sometimes I'd feel weird when I'd be talking about it. I'd be like, is there enough? So then I made a huge effort to make it worth, way worth it. And so the same could be said about your writing. But the best part is that as a young writer, as a new writer online, that you shouldn't feel icky if your work is free. Even if you don't like your work or it isn't great, if you say, hey, if you like fantasy books about dragons, I posted my whole novel for free over on Substack. That should be so easy to say. Even if it sucks, dude, the worst that can happen is no one reads it. Or people are like, oh, I don't really like that. And this may sound bad, but anyone that goes to your page and gives you a chance is good. It's very rare that you make such a bad impression that no one will come check out your stuff again if the opportunity presents itself. There are a lot of you guys out there that maybe saw one of my videos and you had to watch multiple of them to be like, oh, I like Ian, or I'm going to subscribe to the channel. I read something that on average to get someone to go from your free content to a $5 Patreon, they have to consume 40 videos or something, or 40 blog posts. That's an insane number. And so people aren't going to automatically like you. And maybe if you screw up, your reputation isn't going to be gone forever, especially if it's free. If you charge someone $20 for a book and it sucks, then people are going to hate you. All right, next, one of my favorite excuses is I'm ugly. And if you are a guy, just grow a beard. It will cover half of your face. And this one is basically obsolete now because there have been countless people on YouTube or in the podcasting world who have had worse voices than you or looked way worse than you could ever look and have been successful. And once again, if you have a transcendent mission, if you are connected to your divine purpose, then you won't care what you look like. And I personally like people. I watch a couple YouTubers and a couple booktubers, and they have bad cameras, they have terrible audio, they look grubby, and it makes me want to support them more. I'm like, yeah, bro, you're doing it. This is the literary renaissance. You are out here doing content. And I honestly really appreciate that about the booktube world, is that there's 70-year-old retired dudes just on their iPhone 6 just talking into it, and they have to press it and to start and stop. They don't edit anything. It's really cool. The next excuse is I don't have people skills. And this is something that you can improve. One of my favorite recommendations for people who don't think they have people skills is to go take an improv comedy course. And this may seem like the worst idea, but I've known countless people who have changed their lives by just taking one improv comedy course. They have met friends, they have gained a ton of confidence. But most of you guys won't do that. But there are literally books. There's a random book by Vanessa Van Edwards called Captivate, The Science of Succeeding with People, that will teach you how to succeed with people, that will teach you guys how to be more likable, because there are so many authors and so many people also who are just unlikable people. We have all confronted them before. Maybe you are one of those people, but out in the world, you don't have to be unlikable. It's actually really hard to create enemies and make people hate you out in the world. And you don't have to be an NPC. You just have to be able to prime people and bring a good energy and have a positive spin on those things and just not be an asshole. And 9 out of 10 people online and in the world will like you. And if you don't know how to solve that, like I said, there are countless books that you can read. You read Tolstoy, you read War and Peace, but it may seem hacky. But if you are autistic or if you are just really bad socially, there are things that you can learn and start to implement. And the best part about it is that the entire world is your playground. For instance, when I read this Captivate book, it taught me actually a lot about people's facial expressions and their emotions. And I actually had wrong ideas about people's reactions. And that has actually changed a lot about how I react to people, because sometimes I would think someone was surprised or angry, but they were just confused or something else. And me talking to you right now has been a lifelong project. I was the dude back in high school and in college who would just ramble and not make sense and jump from point to point with no connection. And I could have stayed there and said, no one understands me, and been bitter and resentful, and I was for a while. Or I could fix that. I remember at my peak of social anxiety and introvertedness, because I was an introvert for years. I was pretty extroverted in high school, but then I broke away and was a hermit out in the desert for years. And I remember coming back into society one time, and I was at this like party that my sister invited me to, and there was this girl, and she was this woman, and she was like, "Oh, you're a writer," and she was trying to flirt with me. And I was like, I don't remember what I said, but I said something, and then I said right after that, I was like, "Oh, that was a plural progressive use of that. That was really cool." And she looked at me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I remember being like, "Oh my God, I'm really lost out here in the writing world right now." But that's how a lot of people are. But that doesn't have to be your reality forever. I'm a better writer than I was back then. I am more well-read, and I am also better with people. It doesn't have to be this separate thing. Another one people hate is I want to hide behind a pen name, and this is the outlier's favorite. I talked to those 120 people. Excuse me, I haven't mentioned this yet, but over on my free writing school, I, over the past month, have taught to 120 people for free from anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. It was something that I wanted to do to give back to the community and help people and just talk to people about their life, their writing, and give them any advice that I could. And it was also so I could learn more about the plight of the modern author. But I heard countless people give me the most bullshit excuses ever for having to use a pen name. And using a pen name is okay. Like if you have a crazy name, but what I mean by a pen name is anonymously hiding behind your work, which I think is the biggest coward move that you can ever do. There cannot be a literary renaissance, and I don't think that you can really be a part of it if you're going to hide behind your work, because people would be like, I live in a small town in Nebraska with, 30,000 people, and I have sex scenes in my novel, and people are religious, and like, what if they care? And I have kids in school. And I'm like, first of all, you are going to assume that people are actually going to read your work and care, which they aren't. And you also are not a political person. You are someone who is doing a piece of art. And if the people in your town react to you doing an artistic piece of writing that has a steamy sex scene in it, but otherwise is very literary, then you live in a really fucking dumb place, and you need to get out right now because you are living in a trapped world. But I can tell you, having gone to school in Utah, and having been a very extroverted and crazy individual that wasn't afraid to scream at people, at least back then, to troll them, I would do the most insane things, you guys. I would wear provocative t-shirts. I would walk up to people and criticize their religion and make them uncomfortable, just, as a way to create change. That's what my crazy mind thought back in the day. But there were no social consequences. I was known on my campus at Utah State University by a ton of different people. Like I would walk up to people and be like, "Hey, what's your name?" They'd be like, "Gene." I'm like, "I'm Ian." They're like, "I know." And I'm like, "What do you mean you know?" Zero social consequences in one of the most locked down universities in the country. No one cared. And I would hang out with people who were adults and doing crazy artistic stuff, and there were zero social consequences for them. Because if your kids get bullied in school, then they'll know who the jerks are, and there'll be other people who are going to accept them because they know those other people are crazy. And like I said, if you're living in that extreme of a scenario, then you need to leave. And then the other outlier scenarios are all, pretty dumb too. Like, unless your life is at risk, literally at risk, that if you write a book, someone is going to come and kill you, which is insane and 100% unrealistic and improbable, then there is no reason to have a pen name. If you are working for the government and they are going to fire you because of what you were writing, then you need to go get a new job. And most people overreact about how their job is going to react. If you are that worried, you can literally go and ask your boss, and they will be like, "I don't care." But the pen name stuff is a losing battle. When people get their mind on this, they can't get off of it. But how are you going to promote? How are you going to make people believe in you if they don't even know who you are? So next we have the classic, I have social anxiety. And guys, I have been a teacher for 7 years now. And 7 years ago, I don't think I remember any of my kids having social anxiety. Nobody talked about it. That was non-existent. Everybody got up and did presentations. Everybody got up and did debates. I can no longer do presentations and debates because 30% of the class has an excuse because they have social anxiety. And it's the same with adults. Everyone as adults had to make it work. But now, for whatever reason, we have these built-in mechanisms and excuses. And there are people who are introverts. Don't get me wrong. I know a lot of them. Like, I am very close to someone, and I've known him basically my entire life since we were 13 years old. And he is 100% a socially anxious introvert. But when push comes to shove, he will get up and do what needs to be done. I have seen him kill and do really well under very big duress in social situations, but all social situations are, as I talked about in the people skills section, it's a challenge. And some people are going to start and be very bad. Maybe you are a 300-pound man who is trying to run a marathon. So it's going to be really hard for you to be able to accomplish that goal, as there are other people who are very thin and have genetic stamina who can just do it very easily. But when you look at it over a 5 to 10 year period, it is something that you can overcome. And if you have complex PTSD or something like that, then those are also things that you can solve over time. These aren't overnight solutions, but if you are going to take your work seriously, then I don't see that there's any excuse, unless you are the outlier, that over a period of time, you cannot overcome your social anxiety. Tell me if I'm wrong right now. If you are listening to this and you have such bad social anxiety that you can't do anything, because you have to remember, and let me blow your mind with this, that if you work 40 hours a week and sleep 8 hours a night, you will still have 70 hours a week left of free time. And let's cut 30 of those hours out because of family or other stuff. So you have 40 hours a week left. And let's cut out another 20 hours for your other bullshit excuse. So you have 20 hours of free time left a week. And so I want you to retire from writing. And so 20 times 50, and that's the weeks of the year, giving you 2 weeks off, is 1,000 hours. So over the course of 5 years, that's 5,000 hours. And so over the course of 5,000 hours, could you get over your social anxiety if you did everything you could? And the answer is yes. And I'm telling you right now that if you want to be a part of the literary renaissance, then you are going to have to get over your social anxiety. And I would say it would be better for your writing, and you would be a better writer in the long run, not just in terms of success, but actually on the page writing, if you got over your social anxiety. And so spending 5 years, if that's how long it takes, and if you have no other time to get over that, would be not just an investment in your writing, but in your own life. And this gets into my next excuse that a lot of people say, I'd rather spend my time writing, that Cormac McCarthy didn't have to do this. But Cormac McCarthy wasted a lot of time, you guys. Cormac McCarthy, yes, didn't have to promote his work, but he applied for fellowships. He got into science. He got into math. He got into all these different things. And so instead, you can communicate and build a relationship with your audience, because that's something that's missing from this whole equation, that my life has been enriched by all of you guys. Like, guys, I have made friends that are going to be with me till the day that I die. I've met people in this community from my YouTube channel that I am ride or die for. Like right now, like they could show up at my house and say they murdered someone, and I'm harboring them and figuring out the next move to get rid of them and move on to a safer place. If I just said, I'm just going to focus on my writing, I wouldn't have that. I wouldn't have countless people who I could hit up if I'm having a hard time. Right now, it is 7 o'clock at night. I could find at least 15 people to hang out with, just in my Substack subscribers alone that live in Arizona, if I just wanted to go out and have a good time or talk about writing, drink espresso, even though I don't drink caffeine, and just rage out over Cormac McCarthy. That's liberating. That is like the old writers. That is like a movement. If we're going to create a literary renaissance, it is a movement. And even though we're independent and we don't have a manifesto and stuff like that, coming together is a big deal. And I wish I had more money. You know, I'm a broke teacher right now, but one day I'm going to fly around the world and meet up with people who I have become great friends with because of the community that I've built. And I want you to have that same thing. I want you to have people that believe in you and love you. And so when you say I'd rather spend my time writing, it's all about you. And you will have that time in the future. And that's what's great about all this, that if you put the time in now, guys, I feel that if I do this for another decade, that I will have achieved the success on my YouTube channel, my Substack, and in my book sales, that I could spend a lot of my time writing and just do a lot of maintenance and, spend a lot of time with my family and really just focus on writing. I could put in the work. Or I am putting in the work, and that is going to be my reality. But at the end of that journey, I'm going to have so many people and have so many systems in place that making videos and writing are going to be so easy. Here's one I like, that art should be free, that making a book or writing things and doing that is inherently evil. And I feel this. I used to be friends with this crazy drug dealer from Detroit who thought he was going to be the next UFC light heavyweight champion when I was doing jiu-jitsu and MMA in Las Vegas. And that's what he said about yoga. He heard that I was a yoga teacher, and he was like, dude, why would you charge for that? And that kind of shook me up a little bit. Even though I didn't believe him, it was one of those things I was like, yeah, that's kind of true. But what's great about Substack and these places is that you could release a bunch of free stuff and eventually just turn on your monetization options and people will subscribe to you. What blew my mind, you guys, is that I'm planning at some point to launch like a premium writing school. I don't know when that's going to happen, but it's mostly going to be stuff like this, like all the stuff I've learned about BookTube and whatnot. And it's going to be more like, how to grow your audience stuff at like a very deep level. And so I have that up, and then I just put a random price. I put like $70 a month. I was like, no one's going to, and I put on the page, do not subscribe. I don't have an offer ready yet. I don't know what I'm offering. I've had 3 people give me $70 and subscribe. And then I just message them. I'm like, hey, why did you subscribe? And they're like, I don't know. I just really love your stuff. And then I'm like, okay, well, what service can I provide you for your $70? Like, let's work out a win-win scenario. I have a lot of people who subscribe to me on my Substack, and they don't listen to any of the podcasts. They don't care about my writing. They just want to support me. Like, they just are motivated by me or support my journey, and they just want to give me $10 a month. And so you can have a pretty detached, non-salesy mentality in this community if you are providing a ton of value for people with your fiction and your poetry. Honestly, I subscribe and pay people on Substack just because I like them. Sometimes, a lot of the time, I don't read their stuff because some of them are dogs and release stuff all the time. The next excuse is the most sad of all these, and it's the I don't know how excuse. Like, this one is so dumb that you have guys like me. I have a whole free course that is, I think, 5 or 6 hours long over on my free writing school that tells you how to build your audience step by step, no matter where you are in the world or what language you speak. But don't listen to me. There are countless other people who can give you all of that advice. And so the I don't know how excuse is mind-boggling to me. But if you don't know how, go on Substack right now, create a publication, and post your entire backlog. Post anything you've ever written before. Add some cool titles, add some cool cover art, and start there. The next one is a hard one, and I totally resonate with this, and that is that social media is dumb. And guys, if you go look at my Instagram page and my Twitter page, I have done nothing to optimize it. I think on Instagram I have like 700 followers, and all of them have just come from people from the YouTube channel. I don't think I've gained one organic follower on Instagram or Twitter. And in a past life, I still do, but I used to have a yoga Instagram page that had 15,000 followers back in like 2016. And can you imagine if I kept growing that, what that would look like today? But I was so fed up with like the superficiality in yoga on Instagram back then, I just deleted it. I hate social media, but what's so cool about YouTube and Substack and the BookTube community and the Substack community and the Instagram community is pretty cool, is that they are generally very supportive of you. I actually have only received a couple negative comments on Substack my entire time there. YouTube is a little bit different, but in general, posting videos on YouTube or posting a podcast or posting blogs or your work over on Substack, it doesn't really feel like social media. And what's great is I have another video on this, is that Instagram and TikTok are terrible places to find readers if you are a literary writer. It's almost impossible. It's like just not worth it. X can be somewhat good, but in general, it's also really terrible conversion rates. And so the way that you are going to get readers if you're going to be doing social media is through long form content, whether in podcasts or on YouTube, or writing long form content on Substack. That's it. And so I don't think that many of you guys think that's dumb because you're actually watching me do this right now. You don't hopefully feel that this video is like brain rot. And YouTube makes the process very easy to kind of avoid all the crap. Like if I want to post on Instagram, I got to log on to Instagram and then see a reel of something interesting. I could get sucked into the messages. But on YouTube, I could just go straight to the page where I upload, put on a thumbnail, put on a description, and I'm out of there. Same with podcasting and on Substack. And so the medium is the message. And I have a lot of problems with YouTube, but I still think that it is a very decent platform for sharing information out in the world. I have no problem with podcasts, and I have no problem with Substack. And I think podcasting and Substack, which also hosts podcasts for free, is a beautiful medium. And so I've talked about this before, but really fast, the playbook for writers in 2024 is not selling book copies. That is the long game. 5 to 10 years, that will be how you make income. But the best way to make money as a writer is to become a full-time writer is to get 1,000 people to pay you $5 a month, which will equal $60,000 a month on Substack. And it's very easy to find people to pay you $5 a month because they like you and they want to support you. And you can build that one by one or very slowly over time, but it's very hard to sell literary fiction books and make that your entire goal. And so the play in 2024 is that you are going to have to meet people, and you don't have to be social. There is a super cool writer over on my Substack. She's a subscriber, but I think her name is Misty Violet. And she doesn't like promoting, but she's done a great job of communicating with other people and getting people interested in her work. And I personally think that her poetry is very good. And I think over the course of time, even though she's not going to post on YouTube or ever do a podcast, I think that she will get to that 1,000 paid subscribers. If she puts in the effort that she's putting in over the next 5 years, I can't see how she doesn't do it. And what's great about that is that once someone subscribes to you and you're continuing to give them value, they will continue to basically buy a book, because most of the time, if you self-publish, you get about $5 a book. And if you are traditionally published, you get anywhere from $1 to $2 per book sale. But every single month, if someone subscribes to you, that's a book sale. And so 1,000 people buying a book or you're writing on Substack a month is insane. And my quick 5-step format to make this happen and not be a broke writer in 2024 is this. Go on Substack. Substack is the home of the literary renaissance. There is no other website. It's not Ghost. It's not WordPress. It's not anywhere else. Don't believe unless you have a massive audience, unless you have, let's say, over 3,000 people on your email list or 10,000 subscribers on YouTube or over 30,000 subscribers on Substack, or Instagram or X, you should be on Substack, because you won't be able to convert an audience over to someplace else as well as what Substack's going to offer you. Step 2, post any writing you've ever written, your entire back catalog, even if you think it sucks. Get it all in there. That's a free library for people to investigate once they get into you. I used to be really into like personal development blogs back when I was like in college, and I would find these authors and I would read their entire archive. Even if the article sucked, I would go back to 2002 and be reading these articles just because I liked them as a person. I wanted to read everything they had ever released. People do that. Maybe you don't do that, but people like me do that. And so the more I have, the merrier. And if it sucks, then I will, your reputation won't be ruined. Step number 3 is you have to write. You have to start producing free content, then to start building and bolstering that audience. You need to write anything and everything you can. Short stories, poems, nonfiction pieces, Instagram captions, X posts, and you should have books of poetry and fiction on your Substack for free before you ever consider that you'll be able to go full time. Like, that's what I'm telling you. You need to have a lot of free writing out there to be able to achieve the 1,000 members paying you $5 a month. And at the same time that you're doing this, you should be working on your legacy projects, because your book should have thousands of hours put into it. You should put a ton of effort into your book, especially if it's fiction. And so as you are writing and doing all that, you slowly are putting time into your book. And then when you have a sizable audience, you don't have to launch to nobody, because the saddest thing in the world is having a book launch and nobody but your family and friends buying it. And what's also cool is that if you have a ton of reviews, then the Amazon algorithm is also going to start working for you. Because if you post a dead book, it's never going to get out of the Kindle graveyard. But if you post a book that people are excited about and review, it will actually be elevated and you could get some organic sales. And so I have a full course on this. I can go over the excuses all day, but the reason why writers are broke in 2024 is that they are not willing to adapt. And so that is my message to you guys, that if we are going to create a literary renaissance, then we need full-time authors. We don't need hobbyists. We need people who started and continued this process that I'm speaking of for 5 to 10 years. And then they will have the social credibility in the world to be able to kill it. And I personally don't think that there's any other way to gain momentum in the literary fiction world. Honestly, I've looked at all the other avenues while talking to 120 people. I heard all of their plans, and not to toot my own horn, but I think that like the vision that I am seeing is the direction that we need to go. If you disagree, that is okay, but you will come across and do something very similar to this. And so, boom, there we go, everyone. I love each and every one of you. Please comment down below what you learned, what you are doing, what your plan is, what your excuse is. I would love to hear it. I would love to read it. I read all the comments, and I will see all of you guys very soon in the next video.